You want the fingerprint of discreteness. Direct, unarguable proof that spacetime is a lattice and not a smooth continuum. So you build the cleanest analog horizon physics knows how to make a long, thin Bose-Einstein condensate flowing faster than its own speed of sound, with a sonic point where phonons can no longer swim upstream. Across that point, they Hawking radiate. And the substrate's discreteness should print a tiny ripple on the spectrum, a quartic bend in the dispersion, the telltale K to the fourth term. So you compute what the chakra lattice predicts for that ripple. Then you compute what the condensate's own quantum pressure puts there anyway, ordinary Bogoliubov physics in every textbook since 1947. And the two numbers agree, not roughly, to 9 significant figures. The detector you built to catch the substrate has reported only itself. So let me say at the top exactly what gets refuted here, not the theory, the test. Proposal 16 of the corpus said one sonic horizon could be the decisive experiment for substrate discreteness. This chapter proves no such single-sector experiment can exist. One thing before we begin. Advaita Chakra Theory is a speculative, exploratory framework, not established, peer-reviewed physics. Much of what follows is honest conjecture that still needs validation. Watch it in that spirit as ideas to test, argue with, and refute. Be precise about the defendant, because the word refutation in a chapter title invites the wrong guess. What is refuted is not the chakra substrate. It is a proposed measurement of it. The proposal was to take a condensate sonic horizon, read it out through an imposed optical lattice, and extract the leading correction to the phonon dispersion. Find the quartic term, and you have measured the graininess of the vacuum. That was designed to be the decisive test of the whole program. And the claim this chapter settles is negative, and we make no attempt to soften it. A single-sector measurement of the substrate's discreteness cannot exist. Cannot, not merely has not, because the leading discrete correction is algebraically identical to the leading correction of any ordinary analog medium you would use to go looking for it. The chakra K to the fourth term and the Bogoliubov K to the fourth term are the same quartic. So this decisive test became the decisive self-refutation. We present it the way the corpus does proudly, because knowing precisely why a test fails is worth more than a test that quietly would not have worked, and we hand the survivor forward. The discriminant is not dead. It is only cross-sector, and it lives in chapter 34. First, what the lattice actually predicts. All of part 1 reduces every sector to one dynamical matrix built from inertia, locking, and stiffness, with a single lattice kernel 1 minus cosine of k times a0, where a0 is the lattice spacing. That cosine is the whole story. Along the Goldstone direction it gives the exact nearest neighbor dispersion. Now expand it for long wavelengths. The leading term is the ordinary light cone, omega squared equals c effective squared k squared. The first correction is a k to the fourth term with coefficient minus 1/12 of ka0 squared. That single expansion is the origin of every Lorentz-violating prediction in this book, and its size is fixed by one scale ELV. The Lorentz violation energy equals h bar times c effective divided by a0, chapter 7 scale. Note the sign, it is negative. High-frequency modes travel slower than the cone. The lattice is subluminal. Hold on to that word. And for a single non-relativistic matter excitation, the same cosine expansion gives free particle energy plus a correction of minus 8 bar squared a0 squared k to the fourth over 2004 m. That is the matter wave shift proposal 15 retracted to. Its old claim to recover full general relativity was demoted to relativistic quantum field theory on an optical metric. And this quartic is what survived. Both of these are genuinely derived from the substrate, nothing relabeled, which is exactly what makes what comes next so damaging. Now the apparatus. Take a weakly interacting condensate atoms of mass m, density n, contact coupling G. Bogoliubov solved this in 1947, and every textbook carries the answer. Omega squared equals Gn over m times k squared plus the square of h bar k squared over 2m. The first piece is a linear phonon. The sound speed squared is Gn over m. The second is quantum pressure, the crossover from collective sound to free particle recoil. Factor the sound speed out and you get sound speed sims k squared times 1 plus h bar k over 2m sound, all squared. So the condensate has a quartic correction of its own. It was always there. Nobody put it there for us. Two things about it matter enormously. First, its sign is positive. Quantum pressure bends the phonon line upward. The condensate is superluminal where the lattice was subluminal, exact opposites. Second, its coefficient is h bar over 2m squared, and the natural length here is the healing length xai equal to h bar over m times the sound speed. So set the two coefficients side by side. The condensate gives plus h bar over 2m all squared. The lattice gives minus c effective squared a naught squared over 12. Two completely different microscopies, two quartics, one question, can those numbers ever be the same? And tag this clearly. Bogoliubov is standard physics, correctly relabeled into our language. None of it is chakra content. Here is the collision. Equate the two magnitudes. Set c effective squared a naught squared over 12 equal to h bar over 2m all squared, with c effective playing the role of the sound speed, and solve for the spacing. You get a naught squared equals 3h bar squared over m squared sound speed squared, 3 times the healing length squared. So a naught equals root 3xi, root 3 healing lengths. And at that identification, the two quartic coefficients are equal in magnitude exactly, term by term, the same function of k up to sine. Now you might think the sine saves us. It does not, and here is why. A sonic horizon does not measure a dispersion coefficient directly. It measures the modulation the quartic prints on the analog Hawking spectrum. The gray-body ratio picks up a ripple 1 plus epsilon times cosine of the mode phase, where epsilon goes as the square of the dispersive length over the horizon scale. That dispersive length is a naught for the chakra reading and xi for the condensate reading. Epsilon is set by the magnitude of the quartic. The horizon integrates over the mode phase and is insensitive at leading order to the sign. So the experiment returns one number, and that number is overdetermined. Every single sector observable built from the quartic, the horizon modulation, the vacuum dispersion timing, the interferometric phase shift, is degenerate between ACT substrate and ordinary Bogoliubov quantum pressure. The very medium in which you would look for the lattice ripple already carries an identical ripple of its own. Now the honest reading of that 9-digit number, because it is quoted elsewhere in the book, and it is easy to misread as a triumph, the chapter is explicit. The agreement is not a numerical accident, and it is not a successful prediction. In an analog realization, the substrate spacing you are probing simply is the condensate's healing length. So the match is exact by construction. The precision is only the precision of your parameter tuning 9 figures if the trap is characterized to 9 figures, and more if you characterize it better. That is precisely why it refutes rather than confirms. And the deeper reading is epistemic, not numerical. A condensate is an analog of the chakra substrate, a compressible medium whose long wavelength phonons ride an acoustic metric, exactly as the goldstone of part 1 rides the emergent cone. So when you compute what ACT predicts for this BEC, you are computing the physics of a substrate whose microscopic law is the Gross-Pittievsky equation, not the rotor lattice. The answer must be the Bogoliubov answer, to as many digits as you like, because you have simply rederived Bogoliubov in ACT's language. Confirming it confirms that a condensate is a condensate. This is the non-duality clause of Chapter 42 turned against its owner. That postulate says if the substrate is fundamental, the analog is the real. Run it backwards, and it warns you that no analog can ever certify that a given analog substrate is the fundamental one. 3 rescues were tried. The chapter kills 2 and defers 1. Rescue 1 hope the coefficient simply differs, so a precise spectral fit separates them. Dead at root 3 xi, the magnitudes are identical, and any real condensate can be described as if it had that spacing. No residual number is left to measure. Rescue 2 used the sign. The subluminal minus 1/12 versus the superluminal quantum pressure is a genuine structural difference. But a lone condensate realizes only the superluminal Bogoliubov branch. It structurally cannot present the subluminal sign that is ACT's actual matter sector prediction. The apparatus reproduces the magnitude ACT predicts and carries the wrong sign to check it, a double failure. Rescue 3 go to higher order, k to the 6th. No help, it is even more suppressed, and the condensate carries its own k to the 6th from the next Bogoliubov order, degenerate again. Adding resolution to a degenerate observable buys nothing. Now the numbers on a real machine. Rubidium-87, quasi-one-dimensional, mass 1.44, times 10 to the minus 25 kilograms, sound speed about half a millimeter per second, the analog horizon regime of Steinhauer's experiments. The healing length comes out near 1.5 micrometers. The Bogoliubov quartic coefficient is about 1.34 times 10 to the minus 19, meters to the 4th per second squared. and to make the chakra dispersion match that apparatus you need an effective spacing of √3xi, about 2.6 micrometers. The lesson is quantitative and brutal. A spectroscopy of this horizon good to 1 part in 10 to the 9th would confirm the identity and would constitute zero evidence for a rotor lattice vacuum. Draw the line hard, because this is where a reader could overread us in either direction. What is not claimed? We do not claim the substrate is refuted. This is a no-go about tests, not about nature. We do not claim the 9-digit match is evidence for ACT. It is evidence for nothing, and anyone reporting ACT confirmed from one analog sector has made exactly the error this chapter diagnoses. We do not claim a condensate is even the right regime. The spacing inferred from Planck scale photon and cosmic ray data sits below 10 to the minus 26, down to 10 to the minus 32 meters, 20 orders of magnitude below a micrometer healing length. Wrong regime and wrong logical category, both must be said. Now the survivor. ACT locks the leading Lorentz violation coefficient of several sectors to one common scale minus 1/12 of that sector's speed squared over A0 squared. The ratios between sectors are therefore fixed with no free parameters, and all of them share one sign. A generic analog medium has a single sound cone and cannot produce that correlation. In the space of independent Lorentz violation parameters, a lone analog fluid lives on one axis and ACT lives on a line. The gap-closing object is 3 or more sectors, photon burst timing, high-frequency gravitational wave dispersion, ultra-high energy cosmic rays, whose fitted coefficients fall on that line. And the honest frontier, nobody has yet computed the order 1 stiffness to inertia ratios for the physical photon, graviton and hadron modes. Until those exist, the sign and the common scale clustering are the robust claims. The exact ratios carry a theory uncertainty. Verdict. The substrate quartic is genuinely derived. Negative sign, subluminal 1 scale ELV equals H bar C effective over A0. The Bogoliubov quartic is genuinely standard. Positive sign, superluminal, and it was in the apparatus before we arrived. At a spacing of √3 healing lengths, those two coefficients agree in magnitude exactly, and the sonic horizon reads only the magnitude. So the flagship single-sector experiment of Proposal 16 is dead, killed not by data but by algebra, and killed by its own apparatus. That is the derived result of this chapter, and its content is a no-go. 3 things follow. The negative claim is itself sharp and falsifiable. No sonic horizon measurement at any precision can confirm the chakra substrate. The positive claim moves out of one sector and into the correlation between many at a single common spacing with a single common sign. And the epistemic lesson will not go away. An analog of the spine cannot see whether the spine is fundamental. One substrate, one Hamiltonian, one Goldstone, and one blind spot, and the blind spot is closed only from outside the analog, which means the test has to move to where no laboratory can build the medium. Next, the Planck scale. A word of acknowledgement. This work was inspired in part by the non-dual teachings of Sri Narayana Guru, that the creator, the creation, and the substance of creation are fundamentally one. Symbols from the Hindu tradition, the Sudarshan chakra and the Shiva linga, suggested the analogies behind the chakra model. They are acknowledged as philosophical and symbolic inspiration. The physics stands on its own. Thank you for watching. If this made you think, please like the video and subscribe. It genuinely helps this work reach the people who will argue with it properly. And do leave a comment, tell me where you think I am wrong. Every chapter in this series names its own kill tests, and the objections are the point. The book and the next chapter are linked below. Until then, one substance and how far it reaches.